So I think everybody knows what is ultimately coming for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The only question is, how exactly is it going to happen? We have heard so many rumors and so many reports that the MCU is going to reboot. And based off of the recent announcements from Kevin Feige, the president of Marvel Studios, and the rest of the team, it's very clear that this is indeed what they're going to do in a certain way. But the reality is, they actually do need to do this, and they really have set it up in a perfect way. You see, right now, despite however you feel or whatever you think about the MCU, right now, they are in an extremely great position to have the next 20 years of the MCU be absolutely amazing. And while Marvel may have struggled over the past few years implementing Disney Plus and going through the writer strikes, the actor strikes, the pandemic, making Kang the main villain of the multiverse saga, who originally was not intended to be the main villain, but then having Jonathan Majors go through all of the legal issues and firing him and getting rid of Kang now and replacing him with Doctor Doom, despite all of that, Marvel is in a great position right now to give us, the fans, everything that we've always wanted from them. And it doesn't start with the reboot. It starts right now in the MCU. The reboot, of course, is a part of it, a huge part of it. But let me explain really what the future of the MCU looks like, not only right now, but over the next several years. We're talking 10 plus years. But the immediate future from now until Avengers Secret Wars is pretty clear. And if you didn't catch the video that we did yesterday, Marvel Studios and really Disney updated their release schedule. They didn't reveal what all of the untitled Marvel movies were, but they did give us the release dates, and there are 2 movies coming after Avengers Secret Wars. Now, while we can speculate about what these movies are going to be, we pretty much assume that the last film is going to be Avengers Secret Wars Part 2. As far as what the middle film will be, who knows? But there could be a Secret Wars Part 2, and that would be when everything for this current MCU that we know essentially ends. Not completely end in the way that you think it's going to, but we'll get to that in just a bit. But right now, we know what is going to happen all the way up until Avengers Secret Wars or Avengers Secret Wars Part 2. With the release of Deadpool and Wolverine, we have learned that the X-Men that we have seen throughout all the Fox universe do exist in the same universe as Deadpool. And that universe is Universe 10,005. And what might be true, because many insiders have stated this, is that our universe, and very specifically our Earth, because when incursions happen, they are centered around the Earths of each universe. So when 2 universes collide, it's the Earth that you see first colliding with the other Earth. And according to many different insiders, our universe is headed for a collision with the 10,005 universe. And these won't be the only incursions, of course, that happen throughout the entire multiverse. In the comics, the story that leads up to Avengers Secret Wars is the Time Runs Out storyline. And in that storyline, we find out that Doctor Doom, who was actually trying to prevent the destruction of the multiverse, he was trying to stop the incursions, accidentally causes the first incursion, and due to some events that take place, he literally causes the multiverse to go from having hundreds of thousands of different universes in it to having less than a couple of dozen. And then eventually we go on to have no universes, but we have Battleworld, which is a world that Doctor Doom created via the remnants of a bunch of destroyed universes. But most people know how this ends. Doctor Doom becomes God Emperor Doom because he takes the powers of the Beyonder via Molecule Man. But eventually, at the very end of Secret Wars, and this is the 2015 Secret Wars, by the way, just to be specific there. But at the end, Doctor Doom and Reed Richards fight, and ultimately Molecule Man takes the power of the Beyonders that Doctor Doom has and gives them to Reed Richards. From there, Reed Richards restores the multiverse. So that's pretty much the first part of this, of the future of the MCU leading up to Secret Wars Part 2. Robert Downey Jr. has already been announced to return as Doctor Doom, so obviously Doom is going to be the main antagonist of the next 2 films, Doomsday and Secret Wars, maybe 3 films if we get a Part 2. And we're assuming and making educated guesses and also educated wishes. If you've seen Deadpool and Wolverine, you know what I'm talking about there. But we assume, since incursions have been mentioned many times, since the destruction of timelines have been talked about often, and the destruction of the entire sacred timeline has been talked about, that eventually all of them will indeed be destroyed destroyed and Secret Wars will happen, and we'll be left with a battle world or one single plane, one single universe left after all of the multiverse gets destroyed. This will put the Fox X-Men and probably some newer X-Men that might not make it into the new universe after Secret Wars. They'll all come together. We'll get the old X-Men, maybe some new X-Men, the Avengers, the Fantastic Four. We'll get probably an Illuminati team from another universe, since we've already seen that. There's talks recently, and this is just a rumor, that Marvel Studios has once again tried to get Tom Cruise to play Superior Iron Man at some point in time in the MCU. It's Avengers Secret Wars. The variants are going to run crazy. We know there's going to be some cool stuff, and Deadpool and Wolverine proved that it can be done extremely well. We know it's going to be huge, but we also know that eventually the multiverse will be restored in one way, shape, or form. And everything leading up to this point, I'll say, should be amazing. It should be, if they do everything right. And if Deadpool and Wolverine is any indication that they can do it right, then we are in for a hell of a ride. But what comes next might actually be even better, and in theory it should be. You see, in the Secret Wars comics, once everything is restored, it's not restored to its entire originality. What ends up happening is you have some of the characters who were from other universes ending up in the 616 universe, like Miles Morales. This is pretty much what Marvel Studios is going to do. We're going to have a new universe one way or another, whether that means our universe kind of gets completely destroyed and doesn't get restored to its originality, or a bunch of universes actually combine with each other. But if Marvel were smart, and let's hope they are, they'll create a new universe which essentially just has remnants of all of the other universes that were destroyed. And there's a really big reason that this is the exact way that they should do it. One is so some of the characters who aren't necessarily done with their stories yet can still exist. Like Spider-Man. If everything that we've heard is true about his contract, then after Avengers Secret Wars, he still has 3 more films under his belt. Spider-Man 5, Spider-Man 6, and then one more big team-up film. So if that is truly the case, then he is sticking around after Secret Wars. But another big thing that this allows Marvel Studios to do is kind of get rid of the characters that aren't doing so well, that people really don't care about. I won't mention any specific, but when I said that, you definitely had characters pop up in your head. But perhaps the biggest reason is so they can start from the ground up with the new universe having the origins of the new X-Men. This new universe is going to be the very first time that Marvel Studios has access to all of the Marvel characters. Spider-Man, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, the Inhumans, everybody. And it should be built from the ground up, just like Iron Man started off the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and from there they built all of these characters up individually, then had them come together to form the Avengers in a really big way. That is how the X-Men should be handled. Now, I'm not saying you have to start entirely from scratch, but in this new universe that is going to exist, new people are going to exist. And to do it right, I think it would be really cool to show the origin of not only the X-Men team, but the characters as well. And that is the opportunity that Marvel Studios has right now. They're in the perfect position to really just play out this huge story, possibly the biggest story for Marvel Comics, one of them at least, or 2 of them I should say, because there are 2 versions of Secret Wars. This has the potential to be bigger than Infinity War and Endgame, and guess what? The Russo brothers who directed Endgame and Infinity War, also Captain America Civil War and The Winter Soldier, they're back to direct these 2 films. They brought back Robert Downey Jr. to carry these films. And it sounds like he still is Tony Stark, but also playing Doctor Doom, 2 of the biggest characters that we know in one, who is played by one of the biggest actors we know. They're really doing, at least it seems, everything that they can to make this story huge. And like I said, if it's executed in the right way, it will be. And then when it ends, fans will be disappointed and sad because it's the end of an era or the end of a saga, but the potential that the new one has is even greater than anything that we've had before, because you can build up the X-Men and you can build up a new Avengers team. And we've actually heard rumors at this point, not confirmed obviously, but we have heard that another reason they want to do this reboot is so they can bring Iron Man back, Captain America back, Black Widow, a new version of the Hulk, etc., and have them be completely different than the ones that we've seen so far and have them be played by new actors, essentially starting from scratch. And yes, it will be a sad moment where all of what we knew before is kind of done, but we knew it would have to happen eventually. We knew Robert Downey Jr. wasn't going to play Tony Stark / Iron Man forever. Same thing goes with Chris Evans and Captain America, Mark Ruffalo and the Hulk, and even Tom Holland says, you know, he doesn't want to play Spider-Man for the rest of his life. He wants to pass that on to somebody else. This has been a really long time coming, and since we're saying goodbye to those actors playing those characters, it would be cool to be able to keep some of those characters who would be completely different than before, played by new actors. That way we can have insane buildups. Like you could build up the X-Men individually, then have them come together in a big X-Men film like they did with the Avengers. And at the same time, you can start to build up a new Avengers team as well, have them come together in a big Avengers movie, do more Fantastic Four movies, do some Inhuman movies, and then have an insanely huge movie where they all come together. All of the teams come together to fight some big villain who threatens their world, not their multiverse, because they probably shouldn't dive too much into the multiverse after the multiverse saga, but that's the really cool part about the next saga. They're all going to share one world. They're going to occupy the same space. It won't be like a bunch of teams coming from different universes. They're all going to be in the same planet. And I personally think that that's going to be really cool. And that's why I believe that this reboot that everybody has been talking about for a while is a really good idea. And when you have so many teams like the X-Men, the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, you have so many stories to do individually and together as well that you really have enough stories, enough content to last 20 years. So we know what the future is. And the future honestly looks really, really good. But go ahead and let me know your thoughts about all of this in the comments down below. And if you love Marvel and want to stay up to date on everything happening in the MCU, be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any of our videos. Please don't forget to like this video, and you can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.